everyone from Houston, Texas. I am your host, Brandi Kahn, and welcome to Stellar Parenting with Brandi. So, I am an intuitive astrologer, and I also hold a Master of Science degree in psychology with an emphasis in child and adolescent development. So, in this show, we are going to mix the magic of the stars with the art of consciously and intentionally raising our children. And I'm so excited to have you all here. And I'm excited to share with you how astrology can give absolutely amazing insights when it comes to parenting and also when it comes to child development. Now, in the next few weeks, if you would like to be a participant or a caller on my show, I need for you to join my Facebook group. It's called Psychology Infused Astrology. The members of that group will receive priority when it comes to taking callers on this show. And that's because I would rather have a system in place where you're not sharing your child's personal information over a live broadcast as far as like the details of their natal chart. So, again, that group is Psychology Infused Astrology on Facebook. So, since today is my debut with A1R Psychic Radio, this is my first show. I will tell you a little bit about me as a person, how I came to this path, how did I become an astrologer, and why I believe using astrology with your parenting approach can be an absolute game changer for you. So, for me, for the last 15 years, have been a full time homeschooling mom to my four children. And over the last 15 years, helping them and supporting them along their educational journey, I didn't realize that at the same time, I was also having a spiritual awakening. I was learning a lot of things, reading and growing in that way. And it really all began with Reiki. So I was attuned as a Reiki master, initiated as a Reiki master 12 years ago. And with that initiation into Reiki, um, I I was able to have a heightened level of sensitivity. And then with that sensitivity, I began to develop it. And then I was using my intuition to give readings. And then I was giving readings as a medium, which I absolutely love to do. So that's how it really all started for me, was through the process of being initiated into Reiki. And then 7 years ago, I began my love affair with astrology, and I never would have seen that coming in a million years. And the reason why I say I never would have seen it coming in a million years is because if you were to ask me 10 years ago what I thought about astrology, I would tell you that, I don't believe in astrology. I don't think that it's valid. I think that it's fraudulent. I mean, how can every single Leo in the world have the exact same horoscope in the newspaper? That was the way that I thought. So when it came to astrology, I was not a believer, definitely not. And I remember I was with three other women. One of them was my Reiki master, the lady who initiated me into Reiki, and two other students. And the four of us were just having a good time. We were having a conversation, and someone steered the conversation towards astrology. And the three of them were just chatting it up. And I'm just sitting there looking, like with a look of bewilderment on my face, because I was thinking, these women are so smart. How is it that they believe in astrology? Don't they know better? Like, astrology is not even real. That was how I thought. And everything changed in 2016 when my father died unexpectedly. So my father died towards the end of 2016, and within that year after his passing, I decided to go to a show in Houston. There was, the international medium known as John Edward. I'm sure a lot of you know who John Edward is. Well, he came to Houston for a show, and I decided to go because I really wanted a message from my father. Now, there were hundreds of people in the auditorium. I was not one of those who received a message, but I got something much deeper. because at the beginning of the show, John Edward, he told everybody in the crowd, people always come to me and they ask, what psychic do you go to? What medium do you see? And he said, I don't see psychics or mediums. The only person that I see is an astrologer, and she's in Australia, and her name is Maggie Kerr. And I don't know why, but I felt drawn to write down her name. And I knew that I absolutely had to book a session with her. So within the next few months of learning about her, I did book a session. And since she's in Australia, it was on Zoom. And I remember logging on that day for my session with Maggie. And at the beginning, before she began, she told me, she said, okay, I'm going to do your session differently than I do with most people. She said, instead of telling you, I'm going to teach you. And I was like, okay, why are you doing that? And she said, well, you have it within your chart to really understand astrology on a deep level and to work with it. And, I just looked at her like, okay, yeah, she doesn't even realize I don't believe in this stuff. But I said, okay. And, I just went with the flow. And within the first 5-10 minutes of the session, Maggie was telling me the story of my life in a way that no one had ever told me this story before. I, for the first time, felt so validated. I felt seen. I felt heard. I felt like someone finally understood me. And she, in turn, gave me this appreciation for who I am, the way I've been my whole life. So I walked away from that session with this deep level of appreciation and love for who I am. And at the end of the session, I already had my mind made up early on during my session with her that I was going to learn how to do this. I was going to learn astrology. And it just so happened that Maggie was getting ready to start her certification program. And I was lucky to study with her. I studied with her in her program for almost 2 years before I began offering my services as an astrologer. But that session completely changed my life. And in the same way, I love to give and to share that with other people as well. So one of the things that I learned most early on through my studies with astrology, because I was studying the natal charts of the people in my family, in particular my children, one of the things that I learned was each of them is a unique being. Up until that point, I didn't even realize it. I had been going on autopilot and assuming that they were all alike, assuming that they all had the same communication style, same connection style. And I was not really valuing them as the individuals that they were. And so when I was into my astrology training, I had this epiphany, and there was something that I remembered. So when my oldest son, Amir, was potty training, I remembered how we could get him to go and do number one in the potty, but not number two. And that went on for weeks. Like, no matter what I tried, to buy toys, tried to buy candy, tried everything under the sun to get him to go potty, and it just was not working. So, in a moment of desperation, I remember sitting in my den one day, and my husband's copy of Harrop's reference of internal medicine. My husband's a physician. His internal medicine reference book was sitting on the coffee table, and I grabbed it and I began to look through it. And there was a section on skin disorders with pictures. And then I had a really clever idea. So I called Amir over and I said, Amir, take a look at these pictures. You see what happened to the skin. This can happen to your skin if we don't keep you clean. If we don't get you to go to the potty, this could happen. This is why you've really got to go to the potty. And I remember Amir standing there looking at the pictures. His eyes were like wide as saucers, and he just looked and he said, "Okay, okay." And from that day forward, that kid never had another accident, never had another accident at all. That was all that he needed. So then when it was time to potty train my other three children, I'm like, I've got this nailed. I've got this down pat. I know exactly what to do. I've got the perfect trick. But the joke was on me. The trick was on me because it did not work for any of the other three. And for years, I wondered, why did it work for Amir, but it didn't work for the other three when it came to potty training? I even remember my daughter Amira. She's the second child, second born. When I tried the same thing with her, and I opened up the reference book and I showed her the pictures, and it's like it went right over her head. I was like, this is what could happen if we don't keep our skin clean. She was just like, okay. Like she was completely unfazed by it and she went about her day and, still had accidents. And I never quite understood that. And then when I learned the language of astrology, what I figured out was my oldest son, Amir, his sun is in the sign of Leo, but his moon is in the sign of Virgo. So the moon is about, our emotions, our feelings, but also what gives us a sense of safety and security. Virgo is the sign not only of service, being of service to others, but the sign of cleanliness, hygiene, order, organization. So a mirror is internally wired to have a sense of safety and well-being if there's cleanliness, if he feels as if everything is organized in order, hygienic, right? So that's why that mattered for Amir. That's why that worked for Amir. Whereas for Amira, with her moon in Taurus, it didn't work for her at all. And she doesn't have a major placement in the sign of Virgo at all. Now, with her moon in Taurus, if I would have known what I know now back then, I would have said something to her about, okay, you go to the potty, let's go to Bath and Body Works and get the nice scented lotion that you love, or some bubble bath, or that nice cozy robe that you love so much. That would have been more speaking her language. And so that was one thing that I learned early on with astrology is each of these kids is a different individual with different values. They're wired differently. And so I must relate to them in their own individual way or in the way that best serves them. Now, the best way to support your child really is through understanding who they are. Because without understanding, then we're prone to using projection and judgment on other people. But understanding opens the door to empathy. And then through empathy, we can form like really strong rapport and connection with others around us. We're all born with this innate desire, this innate drive to connect with other people. And when that connection is reliably established for your child, then the brain can grow in the most optimal ways. Now, one thing that I do want to add here, just a word of caution as a parent and as an astrologer, please make sure that if you're using astrology with your parenting approach, that you're using astrology to understand your child and not so much to label them. So I'll say that again, make sure that you're using astrology to understand and not to label. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a daughter and your daughter has her sun in the sign of Aries, energetic sign of Aries, right? Action. And you make the assumption, oh my goodness, my daughter has her sun in Aries, her Mars is in Aries. She's going to be so athletic. She's going to be such a go getter. She's going to have this athletic skill and ability. And you know what? She might even go to the Olympics. Okay. So that right there, that's misusing astrology. Because what we want to do is to support our children to be who they came here to be. So even if your daughter has her sun in Aries, her Mars in Aries, the right approach is more along the lines of, I know that my daughter, there's certain traits and characteristics that she will have. She'll be more than likely courageous and bold, and she may be a trailblazer and she may be a leader. But however she wants to use those traits and qualities, I will support her even if it's not through athletics. What if she wants to use those traits and qualities in an artistic way or in another way? then we want to make sure that we are supporting our children, or supporting, in this case, the daughter, and being how she wants to manifest or how she wants to use the traits that she was gifted with. Okay. So always to understand and never to label that, you should be like this, or you should be like this, or you shouldn't be like this because of your sun sign, because of your moon sign, just to understand. And one of the first things that I always encourage parents to do really is, um, before you begin the process of using astrology with, your parenting approach, make sure that you really understand yourself through the lens of astrology. So, for example, what are your gifts? What are your challenges? What are you here to focus on? What does that show? How does that show up in your natal chart? What are your life lessons? Are there any limiting beliefs that you're working with, or that, lurk in the background that affect how you parent? Or is there childhood trauma that you need to heal in order to be the parent that you always wanted to be, so that you're not passing on dysfunctional patterns to your children? It's really important. It's essential that you know all of this about yourself in order to be the absolute best parent that you can be. So, like, what's your communication style? How do you like to express yourself? Um, how do you like to nurture others? What gives you a sense of safety and security? And how does that compare or contrast with that of your child? Do you guys speak the same language? Or are you on different, ends of the spectrum, opposite ends of the spectrum? Is that the way that it is for you guys? So, like, I'll give you an example. Let's say that we have mom or dad who has their Mercury. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication. Let's say that we've got Mercury in the sign of Virgo. Mercury's very happy in Virgo. So, like with Mercury and Virgo, mom or dad may be one that thinks very analytically, they're very logical, they're very grounded in their approach, right? But then they have a daughter, and this daughter has her Mercury in the sign of Pisces. So we've got the planet of communication in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is a sign that's all about spiritual sensitivity. It's all about our feelings, right? So this child is wired to process their thoughts based on their emotions. So when mom or dad comes to them and says, "Why is your room a mess?" Everything should be orderly and organized and in its proper place. That's going to go in one ear of the child and out the other, because that's not the language that the child speaks. The child is on a different frequency, a different level of understanding. The parent would be much better off, since the child really values feelings, to say something like, "Doesn't it feel better when your room is clean? Doesn't it feel better? Don't you feel better when everything is in its place?" And then the child will be able to hear the parent once the parent is speaking their language. Now, if you need more assistance in this area, I've got the absolute perfect program for you. I have a 5-week program, and it's called the Stellar Parent Method. And this program will help you to custom design your parenting approach based on your child's natal chart or their cosmic blueprint. Now, I'm only able to take 5 people. I'm still a homeschooling mom and still trying to balance everything out. So I'm only able to take 5 right now. But you can get more info at my website, brandycon.com, and make sure you click on the astrology button. And then under the astrology button in the drop down menu, you will see the Stellar Parent Method. If you still have more questions about the program, you can schedule a free 15-minute strategy session with me where I can answer all of your questions. Okay? So now we've got a caller. We've got someone that is waiting. And Dave, I'm ready for the caller.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, I'm doing well. Nice to have you on. So, I do have your daughter's birth information. You sent me her information for her natal chart. And what in particular was it that you wanted to know, or what did you have a question about?
I guess I would like to know more about her communication style because we are approaching her teenage years, and Some while we have a good relationship, it is sometimes difficult to kind of gauge where she's coming from if you can't understand. I know you said you had a teenage daughter, um, so if you could kind of sometimes there's like a wall there when she doesn't want to talk about things, and I'm kind of having to pry things out of her. So any help there
Right.
would be lovely.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So we do have your daughter's rising sign as Aries. So she's going to interact with the world in a really energetic way. There'll be a lot of drive for her. She's a free spirit. She's very active, right? And that Aries is ruled by the Mars and Scorpio. So she's got a lot of determination when it comes to what she wants. Okay. One thing before we get to the communication, one thing that I did notice, her moon is in the sign of Gemini. So the moon is all about our feelings and emotions and how we want to be nurtured, what makes us feel safe. So with that moon in Gemini, something that's really important for your daughter that gives her a sense of safety is being able to talk about her feelings, being able to talk about her feelings, and she will open up and talk about her feelings when she's feeling safe. Okay, so now as far as her communication style, we do have Mercury, the planet of communication, in the sign of Virgo, which it's interesting because that was in the example that I just used. So Mercury in Virgo tends to be very analytical, very rational, very reasonable, right, very structured as far
Mhm.
as how they like to express themselves, or how they like to integrate information. The only thing is, her Mercury is in a tense aspect with the planet Uranus. So, with your daughter, it can almost be like it just depends on what day of the week it is. Some days she might, want to really open up and share. And then there may be other days where it's like, well, I'm really not feeling like sharing so much right now, and that's okay. We just have to honor where she's at and allow her to open up whenever she feels like, okay, I'm ready to open up and I'm ready to share. I have one question about your daughter with that Mercury and Virgo. As she's been growing up, have you found that it's pretty easy for her to learn information? Does she have an easy time learning and retaining information?
She does. She does extremely well in school. I'm a homeschooler as well, and we kind of set targets, and she always beats her targets. She's always done with school for the year like a month early. Like she's done like April 30th.
Wow.
Regardless of
Wow.
how I structure it. And so I've noticed that I've had to keep stimulating her. Like, as far as her reading level, we like a lot of the same books, which some moms kind of frown upon because of the themes. But I sit down, we explain, that talk her through it. But yes, she
Right.
has always had an easy time learning. She'll be 14 at the end of this month. So, um, but yes, she's super smart.
Oh, well, that's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, with that Mercury and Virgo, that can be like a child who's got this love of learning, this love of reading, this love of, even learning different things with the moon and Gemini. That all gives her a sense of safety and security. So being able to learn and then being able to share with others exactly what it is that I learned, that's one of the things that will make your daughter, I feel, thrive. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does.
Okay, very good, very good. I will just also mention that your daughter has her sun in the sign of Libra. So, the sun sign will usually kick in later on in life, maybe late 20s, early 30s. So, and one of the themes that I see in her chart is relationships and relating to people. So, one of her primary lessons for this lifetime is being around people, being in relationships with people, and learning how to relate to them. I'm learning how to speak, learning how to share information, learning how to network. All of that, that seems like that's something that really makes her tick, like at a fundamental level. So I just wanted to add that for you as well. Okay, Carla?
Okay. Uh huh. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you so much for the information. Great insight.
Yeah, yeah, of course. You're welcome.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got a few more minutes, and I will just add for everybody else, we're still under the influence or the effect of the Virgo new moon. It was September 2nd or 3rd, depending upon your time zone. So right now, school is starting. The kids are at the beginning of the school year. It's the perfect time for parents to really help your child set new goals for what do we want to achieve this upcoming school year. What's important for us? What are our goals? What are we going to do? And it's a really good time to create a system to help your children to succeed. So everything about planning, being meticulous, having a routine, all of that right now, you may feel compelled or called to do. And it's just because of the energy of the new moon. So take advantage of of the energy right now and go ahead and it's a great time at the beginning of the school year to step into this fully. Okay. So we are at the end of the show. I will mention again, if you would like to be a caller, if you have a question about your child's natal chart in the upcoming weeks, I need for you to join my Facebook group at Psychology Infused Astrology. The members in that group will receive priority when it comes to readings on this show because it allows me to get your child's information in a way before the call where we're not really disclosing a lot of their personal info on a live broadcast. So, again, that's Psychology Infused Astrology. And if you are interested in my program, I've got the Stellar Parent Method, a 5-week program where we go through, once a week, we go through and we really custom design an approach to parenting for you based on your child's natal chart. But the first step of that program, before we ever get to your child's natal chart, we're going into yours. So you're also going to walk away with a much better understanding of yourself and appreciation for who you are. So thank you all for joining me today here on Stellar Parenting with Brandi. I look forward to seeing you and having you here again next week, and I hope you have a fabulous week. Take care.